and some really bad things happened to Otto. Some really, really bad things.
Why are you?
But he tells me that he didn't know about it, and I will take him at his word. I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today. I spoke with the king. I spoke with the Crown Prince yesterday, and he strongly said that he had nothing to do with this. This was at a lower level.
He's convinced that Kim Jong-un didn't know anything about the deadly abuse of an American college student. He takes Vladimir Putin's word that Russia didn't hack the 2016 election, and he believes the Saudi Crown Prince wasn't involved in the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Thursday, February 28th. The president's comments on believing Kim Jong-un came in his news conference this morning in Hanoi. Right now, President Trump is making the long trip home after his summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un came to an abrupt end with no deal reached between the two leaders. A scheduled signing ceremony between the two leaders was scrapped, and the president left Vietnam 2 hours early. The White House issued a statement saying that President Trump and Kim Jong-un had, quote, a very good and constructive meetings. The two leaders discussed various ways to advance denuclearization and economic-driven concepts. The statement continues, quote, no agreement was reached at this time, but their respective teams look forward to meeting in the future. Here is the president in his news conference after that statement was released.
We thought, and I thought, and Secretary Pompeo felt that it wasn't a good thing to be signing anything. We had some options, and at this time we decided not to do any of the options, and we'll see where that goes. But it was a very interesting 2 days, and I think actually it was a very productive 2 days, but sometimes you have to walk, and this was just one of those times.
And will there
it was
be a
about
third,
the sanctions.
Will there be a third summit, Mr. President?
Basically, they wanted the sanctions lifted in their entirety, and we couldn't do that. They were willing to denuke a large portion of the areas that we wanted, but we couldn't give up all of the sanctions for that. So we continue to work, and we'll see, but we had to walk away from that particular suggestion. We had to walk away from that.
Will all the sanctions that are currently in existence remain, sir?
They're in place. You know, I was watching, as a lot of you folks over the weeks have said, we've given up. We haven't given up anything. And frankly, I think we'll end up being very good friends with Chairman Kim and with North Korea, and I think they have tremendous potential. I've been telling everybody they have tremendous potential, unbelievable potential. But we're going to see. But it was about sanctions. I mean, they wanted sanctions lifted, but they weren't willing to do an area that we wanted. Kim promised me last night is regardless, he's not going to do testing of rockets and nuclear, not going to do testing. So, you know, I trust him and I take him at his word. I hope that's true. But in the meantime, we'll be talking.
All right. Well, David Ignatius, a lot to take in there, but I would just say, at least for me personally, that seems like the best of all circumstances, where the president continues to communicate with a country that we were close to war with a year ago, that most foreign policy experts gave us a 50-50 chance of having a land war in the Korean Peninsula a year ago, and talked but didn't give away anything, which was the great fear, especially after the Cohen testimony yesterday, which we're going to get to in one moment.
Joe, I agree with you. I think, as President Trump said, sometimes you have to walk. It seems as if the sticking point here was what U.S. officials have been worried about since the Singapore summit in June of last year, namely that the North Koreans would want removal of most major sanctions before they had taken significant, irreversible steps toward denuclearization. In the view of Trump's closest advisors. This was the problem with all past efforts with North Korea, that they'd been paid too early for inadequate, insufficient compromises, and their nuclear program had continued. So I think you put it just right. In a negotiation, you have ups and you have downs. You have sessions that produce agreements. You have others that end early, and hopefully people will come back to the table later. I think the key thing that President Trump said is that he had been given a verbal assurance that North Korea would not return to nuclear or missile testing. If that holds, we're then in a period where there will be exploration of options, the kind of process that's appropriate in diplomacy. If it's broken, then we fall right back into the very confrontational situation we were in last year.
Well, you know, Mika, there's no reason to take Kim Jong-un at his word, but at the same time, it certainly, that will be a test, and if for some reason the agreement, the verbal agreement holds, that will be a very positive step forward.
Well, we're going to have much more on the President's Summit with the North Korean dictator throughout the show. A member of the Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Chris Coons, will be our guest. We'll also bring in the AP's Jonathan Lemire live from Hanoi. He was one of the 4 U.S. journalists who the Trump administration barred yesterday from covering President Trump's dinner with Kim Jong-un because he asked a question the White House didn't like. To be clear, he wasn't barred by the North Koreans or the Vietnamese. He was barred by the Trump White House. But now...
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.